I'm a live-in tutor for an anorexic young master. The parents promised me a $1 million bonus if he could get into undergraduate school. I put my heart and soul into tutoring, but Charles refuses to cooperate and tries every means to drive me away. It's okay for me to study unless you give me a kiss, brother. But he didn't realize that I was actually willing to meet all his harsh demands for the prize money. The night of the college entrance examination, I took the money and ran away, out of the country in style. On the first day of the sophomore year, I was actually blocked by Charles at the door of the dormitory. "Teacher, promise to reward yourself to me, now it's time to cash in." During the winter vacation of my freshman year, in order to earn money for living expenses, I got a job as a tutor for high school students. When I heard that I wanted to work part-time, my senior in the same major enthusiastically introduced me to a business that charged as much as $400 per hour of class time. The parents were so pleased with the resume of the city's top high school student that the interview went straight through. "Our Charles has a bad personality, so please take care of him." $400 an hour? What do you mean by take care of him? "I'll make sure you're comfortable." After the trial lesson, I realized what the so-called bad personality meant. He was very polite, smiling, and called me brother with a smooth voice. But he couldn't do the questions and didn't listen to the lectures. While I was lecturing, he was playing with his cell phone. Even when I criticized him, he would say, "Brother, keep your voice down, I can't hear the footsteps." I couldn't stand it any longer, and I was very annoyed with Charles, who was born with a golden spoon in his mouth, but didn't want to make any progress. "Although your family is rich, don't you think it's pointless to waste each other's time like this?" Charles glanced at me, his dandelion eyes up at the corners of his eyes revealing disdain. "You're already the 10th tutor to say such things to me. Leave if you don't want to waste your time. The door is unlocked. Go ahead." Charles hangs around playing games like the problematic youths in TV dramas, and a school uniform can't stop the gangsterism in his body. A handsome face for nothing. I told Charles's mom that I couldn't teach him. Charles's mom was very anxious and took me by the hand, complaining from the bottom of her heart. "James, Auntie please, I really can't do anything. His father is always away from home. I don't have time to tutor him. In case he fails to get into college, I really don't know what to do." Seeing that his mom's tears are about to fall, I'm a little helpless. "Look, as long as you can help Charles pass the undergraduate exam, Auntie will give you $1 million, okay?" "How much? Can you write that down so I can read it twice?" I didn't get it. Charles's mom couldn't wait to pull out a cooperation agreement. It clearly states that as long as I keep tutoring Charles until the end of his college entrance exams and can help him raise his grades above the undergraduate level, I'll be rewarded with 1 million RMB. "You can just call me Auntie." I signed a B on the spur of the moment. "Auntie, actually I don't care about the money, I just want to help anorexic children find the joy of learning." Seeing me agreeing, Charles's mom instantly performed a face turn, her tears disappeared, and she took out her personal seal with a joyful smile and stamped it. "Auntie wasn't wrong about you, you really are a good young man who is willing to help others. But let's say it in advance, if you want to give up halfway through the program, you have to help me find the next tutor to take over from you before you can quit." My heart went cold. No wonder the senior was so active in introducing me to jobs. So it's because he's desperate to get out of it himself. As promised, I'm going to stay at Charles's house for the whole winter vacation and tutor him every day. There are more than 4 months before the college entrance exam, so the time is tight and the task is heavy. According to Charles's test scores, I stayed up all night to help him make a detailed tutoring plan. But when I arrived at Charles's home with my suitcase at the appointed time, I was told by the nanny that she was the only one at home. Charles's mom was away on a business trip, and Charles had left the house early in the morning and had not yet returned. "Where did he go, and do you have any contact information?" The nanny didn't know where he went, but gave me Charles's cell phone number. "Hello, who is it?" "This is James, your tutor." "Where are you? Don't we have class today?" Charles said carelessly, "I thought you quit? What kind of tutoring are you doing?" "Who said I quit? I'm waiting for you at your place. Come back soon." "Okay, you wait." After I hung up the phone, I sat in the living room and waited for 4 hours. The nanny prepared lunch for me and I politely thanked her. Just after I finished eating, Charles opened the door and came back. Charles was a little surprised to see that I hadn't left yet. He twirled his keys around his fingertips and lazily tossed his satchel on the couch. "You're still here? How are the sweet and sour pork made by Auntie? It's my favorite." Still the same tone. "You're poor, you're gangly, and you just don't want to have a serious conversation with you. I'm fully prepared for this." He's stalling on purpose to force me to leave. I can't let him have his way. The more disobedient he is, the more interesting this challenge will be. This $1 million, I must get my hands on it. I calmly wiped my mouth. "Have you eaten yet? Hurry up if you haven't eaten, we'll start class afterward." Charles frowned and gave me a cold look. "I want a lunch break after eating." "Okay, half an hour, I'll wait for you." "Half an hour isn't enough, I'm growing now." I looked at his 5 feet 3 inches frame and my brain hurt. "How much do you want to sleep?" 2 hours for starters. Lunch breaks longer than half an hour are bad for brain activity, so half an hour, I'll watch you sleep. Charles stared at me for a long time, then revealed a meaningful smile. "Okay, then you have to watch me every step of the way, don't ever leave." After dinner, Charles and I went back to his room. As soon as we entered, he took off his top. I subconsciously don't look at my head, and after waiting half a day, I realized that Charles had absolutely no intention of changing his pajamas. "You." I had just opened my mouth when Charles pulled off his shorts as well. Charles was lying on the bed with a big smile, and when I saw his hand touching the edge of his underpants, I immediately called out to stop. "Why are you so clean after a nap?" Charles said, "I'm used to sleeping in the nude." "Good boy. So be it. Anyway, in the dormitory, there are a lot of times when people are bare-chested, just a hairy kid who's afraid of who." I pretended to be calm, sat down in front of the desk, and let Charles strip himself naked. The room was quiet for a while. I took out my cell phone and pretended to brush the video, but I couldn't control my eyes to glance in the direction of the foot of the bed. Is this guy really in high school? What did he grow up eating? How did he get so strong like this? His muscle lines are much more pronounced than mine. The abs look good. "Brother, I'm hot. Can you help me fan myself?" Charles coldly out of the voice. I sheepishly retracted the line of sight, pretending to be very busy scratched 2 videos. "It's -3 degrees outside, it's not hot at all. Turn on the air conditioner if it's hot." "No, I don't like to cover myself up when I sleep. What if I catch a cold?" "It's just a problem. If you can't sleep, get up and study." I didn't expect Charles to be obedient this time. He sat up and was about to get off the floor naked. I quickly covered my face with my cell phone. "What are you doing? Put your clothes on first before you come over." Charles looked at me with amusement. "Brother, we are all men, why are you so shy? What's wrong with being a man? Can't men have thoughts about men?" Charles looks like he's found something interesting, slowly puts on his clothes, wiggles his 2 long legs and walks towards me, leaning nicely on the desk. "James, why are you blushing? Damn kid, now you know to call your teacher." I was so ashamed that my eyes spiraled around in 360-degree circles. "Hot. Is it?" Charles bent down close to me. I subconsciously pulled back, but he relentlessly pressed my shoulders. "Teacher, has anyone ever said that you look cute when you blush? What's this guy up to? He's changed from being a scoundrel to a hooligan. Sit properly. Today's task is very heavy. Even if you gag, I won't give up teaching you. After all, there's $1 million waiting for me. These days, what job can make me $1 million in 4 months?" Charles pretended to be touched and covered his chest. "Wow, teacher, you want to save me so much? You are so good to me." In the next second, Charles somewhat evilly hooked the corner of his lips. "It's okay if you want me to make up for it, as long as you give me a kiss. I'll listen to the lesson carefully. How about it?" Charles probably thought that such a rude and excessive request would dissuade me. He is still too young to know the dangers of society. He must not have realized that I am a male gender and a male lover. This kind of condition is simply an overtime benefit. I took 2 steps back in mock horror, and Charles's eyes showed disdain and the slightest hint of amusement. In the next second, I reached up on my tiptoes and planted a solid kiss on his face. The force was so great that it made a crisp boo. like the sound of a toilet plunger being pulled off ceramic. With such a handsome face, I'd normally be scolded for harassment if I tried to kiss him, so why not kiss him for nothing? Charles froze. I blinked innocently. I've kissed you, it's time for class. Charles was speechless and looked at me with more complicated emotions. I guess the feeling of lifting a stone and hitting his own foot is not pleasant. I laughed in my heart, but on the surface, I calmly spread out the teaching schedule that I had carefully prepared. The A4 paper-bound booklet was about the same thickness as an ordinary textbook. After turning it over, it was densely packed with time points and knowledge points. Charles froze. Did you write this by hand? Otherwise, my hand would have broken. You get what you pay for. I should do my best since people pay me so well. Charles rarely restrained his dangling expression and sat down uncharacteristically. I don't know if he had a clear conscience or was impressed by my good intentions, but in the next few hours, Charles listened to the lessons and did the problems peacefully. Even after dinner, he was forced by me to do the exercises for another 2 hours. Seeing the clock hand pointing to 9 o'clock, I packed up my things, ready to go back to the guest room to rest. Charles, however, stopped me. This math problem, it seems to lack known conditions. Let me see. I looked over my head and found that when I was organizing the questions, I had accidentally put in an Olympiad question as an example. Surprisingly, Charles actually did the first 2 questions. This was much harder than the last big question of a normal college entrance exam. A strange feeling arose in my heart, and a flash of light went through my head. This guy's anorexia? Couldn't he be faking it? I didn't dismantle Charles's trick. If he really was faking, then wouldn't I have made a big profit? With the level at which he was able to solve this problem to this point, it would be easy for him to get into college. $1 million is just around the corner. I pretended that nothing happened and silently PUA'd him. You're at a poor level, so it's normal that you can't do it. Don't blame the question. Charles is still thinking hard with his brows furrowed. This is not an anorexic teenager. This is simply a school essay with a school bully hero wearing a scum vest. This morning was delayed for 4 hours. The program was not completed. Tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, we will have class on time. Charles frowned. Classes tomorrow too? Or else, your mom said that I have to make up your lessons every day during the vacation. I don't know which keyword triggered Charles's anti-bone mechanism. He put down his pen and stared at me intently. In the next second, Charles directly got up to grab my cell phone. Without waiting for me to react, he held up the screen to my face and swiped it to unlock it. I immediately reached out to grab it, and Charles easily held both of my wrists in one hand, pressed his knees against my legs, and held me down. I was surprised at his brute strength and was so angry that I couldn't speak. It wasn't until Charles finished sending a message on my cell phone that I broke free of his shackles. For the first time in my life, I was being held down by a man. To be actually pressed by one of my own students? Strange shame. With an uneven breath, I straightened my clothes, which he had messed up, and nonchalantly snatched my phone back from him. What did you just do? Messaged who? I scrolled through the messages and found that he had actually taken the liberty of taking a vacation from his mom for me. Just as I was about to retract it, the other person replied with an okay gesture. Taking time off meant earning 1 less day of class. The pink yuan flew away with wings. I was so angry that I was dizzy. Who promised you time off? I'm calling your mom right now to explain. Whatever, I don't want to skip class tomorrow anyway. But you already promised me you'd pay attention in class from now on. Charles looked at me with raised eyebrows. When did I promise that? My temples jumped. You clearly said that as long as I give you a kiss, you... Charles tilted his head and looked at me with a smirk. His amber pupils flashed with a hint of evil. I did not say the statute of limitations. Tomorrow can be expired. You think you kiss a bite so worth it. 7. I managed to get insomnia from Charles's anger. At 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, I was lying in bed when I heard a commotion outside. The empty 3-story villa, Charles and I were the only ones at home. Nanny Auntie is only in during the day and doesn't stay here at night. It couldn't be that a burglar had gotten in, could it? I gathered my courage and walked out the door and turned on the hallway light. The moment the light came on, I heard a familiar crap. I plopped down by the second-floor hallway handrail and saw Charles wearing a down jacket and looking like he was about to go out. He covered his chest and angrily yelled, "Who are you trying to scare to death by staying up in the middle of the night? This guy, he's really good at backtracking, hey. Who the hell is staying up and where are you going this late?" Charles didn't even pay attention to me, directly striding out the door. It's cold and snowing outside. Where can he go? He can't be running away from home. At least he's 6 feet 5 inches, he can't meet bad people, right? The more I thought about it, the more ridiculous it became. For safety reasons, I dialed Charles's mom's number. "Auntie, I'm sorry to bother you so late. Charles went out alone, so late, I don't know where he went, why don't you contact him?" "Oh, it's okay, he should have gone to play with his friends. You have an early night, don't you have something to do tomorrow?" I choked. It seems like Charles does this all the time. But his mom's heart is too big. I hugged the quilt and waited for Charles to come back in the living room on the first floor, wanting to have a good chat with him. When I ended up opening my eyes again, it was Auntie Nanny who came to work and woke me up from a fitful sleep on the sofa. "James, why are you sleeping in the living room?" I shook my head and said in a confused voice, "Is Charles back?" "No." "Does he often stay out at night?" "Not very often, once in a while during the holidays. His wife is often away from home, so he can't be bothered." "And his father?" Auntie looked puzzled and shook her head confidentially. "Don't mention his father in front of Charles. Just pretend he doesn't exist." Although we were alone in the room, Auntie lowered her voice and said mysteriously, "Charles is an illegitimate child. In all the years I've worked here, I've never met his father once. He is said to be a big boss, and he has never paid any attention to the two of them except for the money. The wife said that as long as Charles could get into a good university, his father promised to arrange for him to join the company, and Charles was most annoyed with his father, so he stopped studying after he found out about this." I instantly understood why Charles pretended to be bored with school. Probably, he just didn't want to go along with the so-called arrangement. While sympathizing with Charles, I also felt sad for him. It turns out that the young masters of rich families are not happy either. Neither can he choose his own origin, nor has he ever enjoyed sound love. Even his future is tied up in a gilded cage. It looks gorgeous, but you can't help it. Just as Auntie finished speaking, Charles entered the door smelling of alcohol. His black down jacket was wide open. The plaid shirt inside had a loose collar, and there was a decorative silver chain hanging around his neck, giving him a loose and uninhibited demeanor. The eyes can be seen vaguely red bloodshot, obviously the aftermath of staying up all night. Seeing me sitting on the sofa in my pajamas, holding the blanket, Charles froze. "You didn't wait for me all night, did you? You're here to be a tutor, not a nursemaid, so did you have to go this far? Or did you think I'd listen to you just because you played a bitter game?" I was severely hurt by the sarcasm in Charles's words. But I didn't want to get on his bad side. I said lightly, "You think too much." The tone of voice was just right. Enough to dumb down a fiery, stinky male high. After saying that, I hugged the quilt and went upstairs without looking back, leaving Charles standing alone in the living room. "What do you mean? Get it straight, what do you mean I'm overthinking it?" I ignored it, leaving Charles to sing his solo act. A punch in the cotton, what can he do? I pushed open the door to Charles's room and he was undressed and lying on the bed with his eyes closed. He looked like he was about to meet the Lord of the Week. "Get up, class." "Shut up, I haven't slept all night." "I'm not the one who told you not to sleep. Get up." Charles didn't even open his eyes. "You pay by the hour, don't you? I'll pay you every penny. Don't disturb my sleep." I was burning with anger. Obviously, the peaceful and cooperative Charles of yesterday was an illusion. Charles didn't accept me as his tutor. I was so angry that I lifted the covers off him. Not good. Naked. I instinctively wanted to put the covers over him, but I was afraid he'd recognize me if I hid too deliberately. What if he found out about my sexuality and just fired me? Probably the bird was too cold and Charles woke up freezing. "Are you sick? Didn't you say yesterday that you don't like to cover things up when you sleep?" Charles looked at me as if he was looking at a psychopath. Suddenly, he got up and pulled open the nightstand, took out a bunch of red bills and threw them at me. I was stunned to lend a hand, only to see Charles lying down again with both eyes closed. I won't let you wait in vain. This was a disgrace to my character. I was angry while counting the money. As I counted, I laughed, and the depression of the whole night was swept away. $20,000. Young master, it's okay if you let me lie down with you. Charles slept until 1 in the afternoon. When he opened his eyes and saw that I was still in his room, Charles scratched his head irritably, put on his clothes and went into the bathroom. By the time he got out of the shower, Charles had straight away picked up his phone and clicked on a game, with absolutely no desire to study. Why don't you want to study? Charles said rightfully, why would you want to learn if you can't? He was a tough talker and he was really angry. Then why are you still playing the game when you're so bad at it? Charles's hand slipped and the character he was controlling became a box. You're so good at this, you can't even open your mouth. I pulled out my cell phone and opened the game to show him my record. The strongest 69. Charles exited the game and opened another MOBA game. I opened the same game again in front of him. King of Glory. Charles directly threw his phone on the table. You're here to give me a hard time, aren't you? Good, the psychological defense was collapsed by me. If your dream is to become a professional e-campaigner or game anchor, I can help you practice your operation, but if you play the game just to kill time, then please put down your phone because you don't have much time left. It's not that you don't have much time left before the college entrance exams, but the days when you can enjoy your student status with abandon and not have to face social responsibilities are counting down. Charles, have you thought about what you're going to do if you don't go to college? Charles sneered, is it any of your business? I played a scoundrel. Teacher-student relationship, employment relationship, what other relationship do you want? Charles didn't care about me, so I had to resort to my best tactics. You usually do poorly on purpose, right? You actually like working on math problems, don't you? Charles hesitated for a second, his voice cold. Can't understand what you're saying. I took out the original paper with the provenance of the Olympiad questions he did yesterday. Charles was silent. I know you don't want to work at your dad's company, but life is your own. Gambling on the moment will only hurt you, and people who don't care about you won't be hurt at all. Charles blushed, and there was more than a hint of harshness in his gaze. I can help you keep your secret, and I can also help you expand your explanation of the OU test questions. In exchange, you have to cooperate with me to make up for it. Charles looked at me coldly. What if I don't agree? It's simple, I'll walk out and then get the next tutor to torment you. However, I want to earn this money and you don't have to pretend in front of me. It's in each other's favor if we are open and honest. Charles scratches his hair in annoyance. Deal. Then he got up coldly and went outside to get some water. I pulled out my textbook with satisfaction and inadvertently glanced at his cell phone screen that was stuck on the game's opening screen. Heck, it was the birthday greeting animation that popped up from the system. My brain went blank for a second. Today is Charles's birthday? No wonder he acted so surprised yesterday when he heard the news that he had to attend class today. On his birthday, Charles actually didn't have a single family member by his side. Oh, my poor little young master. 11. I wanted to do something for Charles. Not to change him, but simply to get him through the day on a high note. Charles was a little puzzled as he looked at the desk that I had cleaned up. I asked in all seriousness, Charles, do you have any wishes? After opening up, Charles didn't seem to care to disguise himself with a flippant smile anymore. My wish is that you don't appear in front of me from today onwards. Except for this. No more. I patiently guided. Have you ever bungee jumped? Have you ever raced a car? Do you want to experience the joy of riding on horseback? Charles was a bit tempted. You want to take me there? Sure enough, this guy is a thrill seeker. No, I'll give you a few examples that might interest you. While the above project won't be completed today, I know a good place that could be used as a flat replacement. Half an hour later, Charles and I were standing in front of the children's playground. Surrounded by parents or elderly people with small children, those who came to play were almost all elementary school students. Charles was lack of interest. Is this what you said, a flat replacement? Yeah, isn't there a trampoline here? And a merry-go-round? Come on, Let's go find the galloping feeling. Charles was about to take a cab when I dragged him by the arm to the children's playground. Don't go, I bought a ticket, can't we just be kids for a day? I've never even been there. I'm not kidding, I've never been to a kiddie park. When I was a kid, my parents wouldn't let me go because, in their opinion, going out to play would delay my studies. Study hard, go to college, work and earn money. That's all my parents ever wanted for me. As for whether I am happy or not, they never asked. Now that I've grown up, I'm embarrassed to walk into this park full of laughter alone. Charles walked reluctantly, without making a sound, into the carousel full of children. With his long legs, he was curled up on the carousel. I sat next to him and held up my cell phone to take a picture of him. Charles glared, "No pictures." He reached out to grab it, but the wooden horse started just in time, and while he stumbled, I hurriedly put away my cell phone. I won't delete such a precious image without paying $300 and $500 as hush money. Unfortunately, I couldn't be happy for long. This Trojan horse not only shook up and down, but also undulated back and forth. I didn't sleep well last night, so much so that my head was foggy. When I got back on the ground and stabilized, I actually threw up. A strong and healthy man. I threw up on the wall after riding a merry-go-round with a speed of less than 2 kilometers per hour. What a shame. Charles laughed unmercifully. I took the mineral water he handed me and said awkwardly, "It was purely an accident, it was my first time to ride it, I didn't expect the speed to be quite fast." Charles laughed wryly. Charles looked at me wistfully and pulled me in the direction of the pirate ship. Just now how I dragged Charles to ride the wooden horse. Now how he pulls me to the pirate ship. I was dizzy and my whole body weakly crooked on Charles's shoulder. Charles gave me a disgusted look, but didn't push me away after all. Instead, he raised his hand and clasped my shoulder, helping to alleviate my weightlessness. My heartbeat accelerated steeply. I swooned while spitting at myself. "James, you beast, a handsome guy hugs you and you're all over the place. Shame on you, this is your student." No, it must be the drawbridge effect. I was scared by the pirate ship and had an arrhythmia, not a heart attack on Charles. Not bad for a top student's brain. That's very sensible of me. By the time we disembarked, I was almost half hanging on to Charles. Given my physical condition, the entertainment program was terminated and we had to find a cafe in the park to rest. I lit up at the cupcakes on the counter. While Charles was on his way to the restroom, I made a deal with the clerk to give Charles a surprise. "Hello, sir. Congratulations on becoming the store's 10,000th consumer. The store is giving away a fruitcake. Thank you for your patronage and support." "Wow, we are so lucky too." Charles looked at the cake and then at me. "Has anyone ever told you that your acting is fake and pompous?" The clerk and I laughed twice in embarrassment. The clerk was embarrassed and she could gray out. I was embarrassed, I could only sit in place with a reddish color. "So, happy birthday, haha. The cake is on the end, make a wish." Charles stared at the cake for 2 seconds. "How did you know it was my birthday?" I lied. "Your mom called me and told me, but I didn't tell her about bringing you out, so don't tell her, in case she quits me, I won't be able to find such a high-paying job." I thought Charles was going to scold me for being nosy again. Instead, he took the initiative to light the candle himself, closed his eyes and solemnly made a wish on the cake. After making the wish, Charles looked at me with a smile. It was a different kind of smile from the usual flirting and teasing smiles, but one that came from the bottom of his heart. "Why are you so nice to me?" "Because I want to be friends with you." Charles lifted his hand, scooped up the cream-dipped strawberry in the center of the cake with his spoon, and fed it across the tabletop to my mouth. "What kind of friend?" My mouth subconsciously opened and closed. What a situation. The little brat didn't think that I had a crush on him, did he? It's hard to believe that I was caught peeking at his muscles. Or did my waiting for him to come home last night make him think too much? It's over, if my sexual orientation is exposed, I'm sure I won't be able to work in his house. It was as if the strawberry in front of me had turned into a time bomb. I forcefully replied, "Also a teacher and a friend, a good teacher and a good friend, a friend straight, a friend understanding, a friend with a lot of knowledge, a friend." Charles expressionlessly gagged me with the strawberry. "James, you're more pleasant when you don't talk. 3. Charles and I were much more cordial on the surface. His mom was surprised and said that almost none of the tutors she had hired in the past had lasted until the third day. James, Charles didn't bully you, did he? I replied hypocritically, of course not, we're very close. Only she didn't know that behind this peaceful appearance was the fact that I had to put up with Charles's occasional molestation. Sometimes he would force me to give him a kiss, just like when we first met, before he would be willing to attend class. Sometimes he'd intentionally leave his clothes on in front of me and wait until I was red in the face before slowly putting them back on. I had reason to suspect that Charles was intentionally armed with a handsome hand, and I had also suspected Charles's sexual orientation. This suspicion was dispelled when he shared the URLs of male and female romantic action movies with me for several days in a row. He would also follow up with me to ask me which genre I preferred and ask me what episodes I felt the most when I watched them. I was certain that Charles wasn't bent. Just pure bitchy. Winter break was coming to an end and I was already numb to Charles's abs and pecs. Before every class now, he sticks his face out first and I barf in his face emotionlessly as the bell for class. The old man can't tell the difference between a straight man's catch and a kindred spirit's seduction. For the money, I put up with it. On the 29th day of the lunar month, Charles's mom came back from out of town. She gave me a red envelope and asked me when I was going home. Auntie, I'm not going home for New Year's. I'll take classes on the first few days. Charles's mom was surprised. Why don't you go home? You didn't get a ticket? I explained awkwardly, no, it's a long way from home, so it's inconvenient to travel. That's good, stay with us for New Year's. It'll be fun to have more people. I went back to the guest room and opened the red envelopes happily, but Charles came to me with his cell phone to play a game. I can't believe she only gave you 10,000, my mom is too stingy. That's a lot. It's enough to cover my living expenses for half a year. Charles was shocked. Then he silently opened his cell phone and transferred another $10,000 to me. I was so grateful that I sighed from the bottom of my heart, you are so nice. The young master may have been aggrieved and lonely, but never poor. 14. Charles asked me why on earth I wasn't coming home for New Year's Eve. Spending time together, Charles probably picked up on something. For example, I never talked to my parents on the phone. I bristled. I broke off relations with my family. Because I was a closeted homosexual who shamed them. In high school, I realized I was different. I was in a deep funk and my grades suffered as a result. My parents balked at the idea that I had fallen in love early in school and made a scene at school, insisting that our homeroom teacher catch the female classmates with whom I was romantically involved. As a result, the investigation found that I never had contact with female classmates. I was so embarrassed by them that I told them that I didn't like girls at all. My dad slapped me straight across the face. Later, he would rather suspend me from school than send me to a sober living home for treatment. I called the police. The police came to my home several times to mediate, and the surrounding neighbors knew about me. They thought it was a shame to have a homosexual son and said that if I didn't cooperate with the treatment, they would have to break off their relationship with me. At that moment, I finally realized that I could never get their understanding and support. To them, I was just an emotionless learning machine that could only follow the route they envisioned. If the machine breaks down, just fix it. But I am a human being. So I resolutely picked up my bag and left home. I didn't dare tell Charles the real reason, only that I was having problems with my parents. So I'm really short of money, you work hard on your exams after school starts and help me earn more bonuses. Charles looked deeply at me, okay, promise, come here and let me have a kiss. I can't. I'm serious. Charles laughed and pressed me underneath him. We were just messing around until we heard 2 knocks on the door. Charles's mom was standing at the door. We had forgotten to close the door. Something came up at the office, I'm going out, don't wait for me for dinner. I was busy kicking Charles out of the way and scrambling to get up from the bed. Take care, Auntie. Luckily, the other party just smiled slightly and left with a natural expression. Luckily, your mom didn't hear you? What happened to you? I turned my head and found Charles covering his crotch with a pained expression. Where the fuck are you kicking it? 15. A few days after Charles started school, I also returned to the college campus. The tuition time was changed to every Saturday and Sunday. In the first model exam, Charles made it into the top 500 in his grade for the first time ever. In order to recognize Charles's progress, I canceled my Saturday night study time and took Charles with me to play games to score points. Just as I got online, a bunch of invitation messages popped up. "Why don't you join my friend? Let's 3-row." Charles did not refuse, so I agreed to my friend Robert's invitation. Robert and I were high school classmates and went to the same school in college, so our relationship is very strong. As soon as we entered the team, Robert shouted in the team mic, "James, what have you been up to lately? I can't even catch you in your dormitory, I miss you." I glanced at Charles awkwardly. "Robert is my good gay honey. We think about you and love you all the time. The average person might not be able to take it. Don't yell, the other teammate is my student. Watch my image, okay? Yo, today's identity is James. Disrespectful, disrespectful. Let's go, I'll dance with you." Robert and I were the only ones talking. Charles was always silent. The game ended and we successfully ate the chicken. Charles, however, quit the game. "I don't want to play anymore, I'd better do the questions." I was touched to the core. The sense of accomplishment of successfully probing a lost teenage boy made my heart burst with joy. "Which subject do you want to do?" "Language, math, physics, chemistry, and biology." Charles raised his eyebrows. "Biology? Indeed, you missed the most marks in biology for this comprehensive paper. Let's start by looking at the questions you got wrong this time." I flew into lecture mode, ignoring the probing look in Charles's gaze. I was in the middle of an impassioned correction of my mistakes when Charles suddenly took hold of my hand holding the pen. "Brother, your hands are so small. Is it because they're small that you're so nimble when you play games?" My back suddenly tightened and I shook him off in a pretense of composure. "Don't wander off. Did you hear what I just said about genotypes?" Charles scrutinized my face, his expression focused. "To summarize, you're monoid, I'm monoid, and if we were to have a child, it's unlikely that the child would have double eyelids." How did it get to the point of me having a baby with him? 16. Charles looked innocent. "Am I wrong?" "Right theory, wrong example, next question." 9 o'clock, class dismissal time. I picked up my book bag and was ready to go back to the guest room when Charles blocked the door and wouldn't let me go. "Can you still take me to the game later?" "Yes." "Then why don't you just sleep in my room? It's more efficient to talk in person." Charles's tone was so reasonable, but I couldn't help but feel guilty. "I can't, I'm used to sleeping by myself, I can't sleep in a bed with someone else." Charles pressed me harder and harder, and I slowly backed away, finally being pressed against the desk. "How do you know? Have you slept in a bed with someone else? A girlfriend?" I was a bit confused. Where did all this domineering, impetuous jealousy come from? Charles isn't really thinking about me, is he? Alarm bells went off in my head. Although I admit that I'm attractive and good-looking. But what's the point of me bending someone's child when their parents pay me well to help them with their grades? I tried to push Charles out of the way, and he braced both hands on the edge of the table by my legs and didn't move. "Yeah, I have a girlfriend, she's pretty." Charles didn't pull out, and we kept our eyes locked at a loving breathing distance. Finally, Charles let go of his hand and looked down at me. "Do you have a picture? Curious what type of girls James likes." I looked hard in my photo album for a picture with my cousin. "Nah, it's nice, isn't it?" Charles's eyes dimmed for a moment when he saw the picture. "It's pretty, but you look like a minor in that picture." "Nonsense, it was taken 3 years ago. I was a minor then." I tried to be persuasive. "When you go to college with your good looks, you'll surely gain a lot of girls' hearts, and then you'll have a sweet love affair too." Charles tilted his head. "Meaning, as long as I go to college, I'll be able to fall in love with the one I like?" "That's for sure." Charles smiled abruptly. "Okay, I'll try my best. But James, don't I get a reward for improving in my exams?" "What kind of reward do you want?" Charles rubbed his chin, looking like he was seriously thinking. "I don't know, why don't we save it up and wait until the end of the exams to give it together?" I agreed without even thinking. As long as you promise me that you will play normally in the college entrance exams and don't intentionally hand in a blank paper, what kind of reward do you want? Just mention it. I was so immersed in the joy of $1 million coming my way that I ignored Charles's meaningful smile. Even in the shower, I was singing "Good Day." After the shower, I came out wrapped in my bathrobe only to be met with a wide-eyed stare from Charles sitting on the edge of the bed. He was in the habit of wearing a white work undershirt and gray shorts as loungewear, and his hair was dripping with moisture, so he had obviously just gotten out of the shower as well. "What are you doing in here?" "I couldn't sleep, I was waiting for you to watch a movie with me." Charles raised his cell phone and smiled wickedly. There was a vague feeling of ill will. When I got close enough to take a look, sure enough, the screen was playing Yellow Waste. What's more shocking is that the main characters in the screen are two men. 17. My blood pressure instantly shot up. Are you sick? Are you crazy to come to someone else's room to watch this kind of thing? Charles didn't think so and even turned up the sound on purpose. I was so embarrassed that I looked for my head all over the floor and performed a set of air punches on the spot. I used to peek at this kind of stuff myself. Would even exchange resources with Robert and discuss the protagonist's figure. But now that it was Charles who had extended the invitation, an inexplicable panic bubbled up inside me. And some dry heat. In my haste, I pulled my fictional girlfriend out as a shield again. No, I promised my girlfriend I'd never look at this kind of stuff again. "You've seen this kind before?" No matter what kind, she won't let me see it." The smile on Charles's lips tightened, his eyes narrowed slightly, listening to her so much. Of course, with her, I can't be interested in anyone else. God has eyes. I really didn't pretend to be a straight man to cheat on my marriage, but I don't want my brother to go astray. Please don't strike me with lightning. So does she know that you kiss your students every day before class? My heart missed a beat. Yeah, it's okay. Robert and I do it all the time too. It's just a joke between buddies, isn't it normal? I began to intentionally avoid Charles's physical contact. Charles also seemed to have realized this and stopped his meaningless harassment. We resumed our normal tutor-student relationship, and our WeChat communication was limited to topic explanations. 3 days before the college entrance exam, the school was on vacation to allow candidates to adjust their mindset and review freely. I offered to give Charles pre-test counseling, but was unexpectedly rejected by him. "Don't you have a final exam coming up too? Save some time to study on your own, I won't need you to worry about it." I expressed my uneasiness and tried to call Charles in the dormitory at night to video him and help him with his final focus. But Charles said he didn't need it. "Charles, James, you seem to be more nervous than I am." Of course I'm nervous. What if Charles doesn't keep his word and turns in a blank paper on the college entrance exam? Will he choose to repeat the exam or stop going to school? I was shocked by my own thoughts. The first thing I was worried about was not my $1 million bonus, but Charles's future. The cell phone shook, and Charles sent another message. "Don't worry, I already have my own goals in life, I won't mess around." 19. The end of the college entrance exam means the cramming stops. I was busy reviewing for the final exams and didn't meet with Charles. He sent a message saying that he felt like he played well, and a stone fell from my heart. I could safely withdraw from his life. When I thought of this, my heart was indescribably sour. As if there was still some reluctance. Robert and I made a date and signed up together to apply for a summer exchange program at Columbia University. We were going to spend a few days in the area before the program started, and our flights were scheduled for the day of the last exam. Coincidentally, it happened to be the day when the scores of the college entrance exams came out. I was already in the waiting room when Charles's mom called. "James, Annie, thank you so much. I never dreamed that Charles would get such a high score. I'll transfer the money to your bank account later. If you have any difficulties in the future, please feel free to contact me. Auntie will do her best to help you. I'll do what I say." Maybe she was so excited that she forgot to tell me Charles's score. I wanted to send Charles a message to ask about it, but after clicking on the dialog box, I was hesitant to know what to say. It didn't matter. The intersection of our lives was over, and in the future he would pursue his life's goals for more good, and I would have to keep working for my future. I ended by sending 2 words, congratulations. Before the plane took off, I turned off my cell phone. When I changed planes in Hong Kong, I received an alert message that the transfer had arrived. Looking at the long string of zeros on the account, I almost fainted with excitement. I just wanted to send Charles a screenshot to show off. When I clicked on the dialog box, the message stayed at congratulations, which I had sent 4 hours ago. The fire of my joy instantly faded. Forget it, the ecstasy of the poor. Young master can't understand. 20. In the blink of an eye, summer vacation passed. After returning from the US, I stayed at Robert's house for a few days. At the beginning of the sophomore year, we went back to school together. I didn't have much luggage, but Robert had 3 big suitcases full of stuff. Why don't you take them to the 6th floor first? I can't carry it all by myself. Although Robert and I were in different faculties, our dormitories were in the same building. He was on the 6th floor and I was on the 4th floor. I was dragging Robert's suitcase up the steps, and when I was halfway there, someone suddenly snatched the lever from my hand. I was shocked. In broad daylight, someone was actually robbing the luggage on the university campus. As a result, I looked up, but ran into a pair of familiar amber eyes. Charles tanned a little, a period of time not seen. He grew taller, facial features are more three-dimensional, can be said to be the perfect bone phase, clear and smooth. My feet were rooted to the spot. The corners of Charles's lips were slightly raised. What? James has already forgotten about me? I found my voice in a panic. No, how can that be? I'm just so surprised. I didn't expect to see you here. Yeah, why is Charles downstairs in my dorm? Charles easily picked up the bulky suitcase and took long legs up the steps. I'm here to ask my teacher for a reward. You said you'd give me a reward after the exams, but you ran away to a foreign country, and I thought that you were avoiding me on purpose. Now, isn't it time to honor it? 21. I watched as Charles carried his suitcase into the elevator, with Robert not following behind him. I had no choice but to take Charles back to my dormitory on the 4th floor. My roommates hadn't arrived yet, and the beds were still covered with dust sheets. Charles obviously had no intention of leaving right away, and wiped the dust off his chair and sat down nonchalantly. I gritted my teeth. What kind of reward do you want? Don't worry, as long as the price doesn't exceed 6 figures, I'll promise you anything. Charles seemed to be in quite a good mood. So generous? I can't say I'm generous. Anyway, the wool comes from the sheep. Charles didn't mention what he wanted, but just asked me about my life abroad. You've been in Colombia for 2 whole months. Why don't you bring your girlfriend to America with you? I giggled and sighed. It's not easy to explain, and it's easy to say more than you can say. Broke up. Why did you break up? Long-distance relationship? Sort of. Charles laughed lightly. No wonder, I have not even seen a picture in your circle of friends. I thought, you are lying to me. My brain was racing, not waiting for me to figure out how to change the topic. Robert shouted from outside the door. James, where's my suitcase? Charles glanced at the large black suitcase at his feet and blushed. The suitcase I struggled to carry up here, I don't suppose it's his, is it? I nodded slowly. Why didn't you say so? No, buddy, you didn't ask either. As Robert pushed his way in, Charles happened to slip and kick the suitcase to the floor. Charles looked innocent. Sorry, my leg cramped up. I don't know how I kicked it out. It's okay, thank you, for helping me to carry the suitcase up. My name is Robert. I'm from the School of Information Technology. Which school are you from? I looked at Robert's straight eyes, and I felt bad. This guy is a face control nymphomaniac. He definitely has a crush on Charles. He's not. I'm Charles, a freshman in the math school. Charles? I snapped my head around. A couple of meanings. Robert dissatisfiedly muttered in my ear, why didn't you introduce me earlier if you have this kind of superb heavenly dish in your institution? My whole body was in a state of stagnation. I only just realized that he is from our college. 22. I never thought that Charles would come to my school. He even became my junior in the same major. Robert took the initiative to invite Charles to have dinner with us in the cafeteria. Charles readily agreed. So the situation became, at the dinner table, I watched my good gay honey do her best to show off in front of the schoolmate who seems to have a crush on me. Hey, can I tweet you? Sure. I gave Charles a little kick under the table. But apparently, he didn't accept my signal. Charles had a look of sudden realization. Looking at your WeChat avatar, I remembered that we seemed to have played games together. Robert froze for a moment and looked at me with a look that begged for an answer. Right, last semester there was a time when you invited me to play ranked games with the student I was tutoring at the time. That was him. Robert's eyes widened abruptly and his eyes traveled back and forth between Charles and I several times. I'm going, so inspirational, James. Didn't you say that the student you tutored was an extremely bad student? After some tutoring from you, he actually got into our school. Charles was talking nonsense in a serious manner. Thanks to James, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't even be able to go to college. It's a pity that I didn't know any better and made things difficult for James on purpose. I felt bad and quickly got up to cover Charles's mouth. Robert's gossipy soul was burning brightly and took my hand to stop Charles. Fishing and eating, he was always more keen on the latter. How are you giving him a hard time? Charles winked. I'm ashamed to say that I always forced James to kiss me when I didn't want to do well in class. Now that I think about it, I was so clueless. If I had known James had a girlfriend earlier, I definitely wouldn't have bullied him so much. Robert's jaw dropped into his rice. A chill went down my spine. Sure enough, the next second. No dude, when did you have a girlfriend? Are you kidding me? 23. Little did I know that my sophomore year would start off on a hell of a hard time. Ever since the fact that I hadn't had a girlfriend came out, Charles had been following me around all day. He followed me to dinner, to class, and back to the dorm. I was so upset that at night I dreamt of teaching Charles math problems. It was so annoying. I was determined to have an open and honest conversation with Charles. I took the initiative to ask Charles to go to the bar on Commercial Street to have a drink. As the saying goes, wine makes you bold. Freshman year there was a late study hall. Charles came a little later. When he appeared in front of the bar, I could clearly feel that the eyes of the surrounding people were all focused on him. Charles wore a black V-neck t-shirt, collarbone slightly exposed, close-fitting sleeve wrapped around the tight and strong arm muscles. There is a kind of indescribable sexy. I subconsciously gulped. James, why do you suddenly want to ask me out for a drink? Charles sat down on the couch across from me and familiarly picked up the glass in front of me and took a long sip. Thirsty. He waved familiarly for the waiter, asked for another glass, opened it and filled it. I disliked 2 beers alone before he arrived to bolster my courage. Given that I hadn't had much to drink, I didn't have much of a count on how much I could drink. Charles raised his glass to clink with mine, and I didn't move. My eyes landed on the knot of Charles's sliding throat, and I ghosted a feeling of courage. Charles, do you like me? Charles spat out the beer he had just taken in his mouth. 24. Charles scrambled to wipe my face with a tissue. I hadn't reacted to what was going on. Charles's hand was cool and soothing on my face that I couldn't help but rub it twice. Charles froze in midair. James, are you drunk? Not drunk, just a little dizzy. I stretched out my thumb and forefinger and drew a comparison, describing how tiny the drop was. Charles didn't say anything. The next second, I felt him sit down next to me. What if I said that I do like you? Charles's voice was close to me. So close that I could feel his breath. I subconsciously scrunched my neck. No, Charles, we're both boys. Charles was silent for a moment and his large bony hand took hold of mine. I tried to pull away, but he tightened his grip. So do you like me? I denied it. No. Are you afraid? I'm afraid. Afraid of what? I was probably really drunk. I was starting to speak incoherently. Homosexuality is dishonorable. Your mom will be sad. You can't make her sad. Gays get kicked out of the house? Charles cupped my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. So, is that why you left home? I promise none of this will happen that you're worried about, trust me. My heart pumped violently and I became conscious. I think I said something I shouldn't have. Charles didn't give me a chance to dodge. James, you like boys, don't you? And can you tell the difference between not liking me or being afraid of liking me? 25. I couldn't tell the difference. I don't know when Charles became a part of my life. I couldn't help thinking about him, and even my dreams were full of things related to him. During the 2 months I went to America, I deliberately cut off contact with Charles. But it turned out that doing so could not get him out of my brain. Whenever I encountered something new and strange, I always wanted to share it with Charles first. Ideas, I am always controlling myself not to think about the name Charles. But I didn't dare to tell Charles. I couldn't bear the thought of him paying such a heavy price as breaking up with his mother for me. I knew what it was like. I was determined to be a turtle, so what could Charles do to me? Charles looked like he saw through my plan and smiled. Since you don't want to face your feelings, how about this? You give me my reward. If you still think the same way as you do now, I promise not to pester you anymore. I froze. What exactly do you want as a reward? Charles moved closer to me, his lips brushing mine as his breath lingered lovingly. So close it was like a kiss. I want you. 26. I shivered as Charles leaned in and pressed down. Overbearing, brutal, and rogue as always. I'm afraid I've been ghosted into agreeing to such an outlandish request from him. No, Charles, I can't. Teacher's mouth, isn't it usually very powerful? I can't believe you can say soft words. This chaotic and unrestrained tirade didn't end until midnight. I almost passed out. When I woke up the next day and opened my eyes, I was confronted by Charles's smiling face. Teacher, you're awake. My face burned with shame. What time is it? I should get back to school. I have class this afternoon. Charles raised his hand and pressed me back under the covers. It's not 12 yet, there's no rush. His fingers roamed restlessly over my shoulders. I instinctively flinched, but it drew a soft laugh from Charles. Teacher, you're so sensitive. Don't you call me teacher, you're no longer, not my student. Charles propped his head on one hand and looked down at me from above. What should I call you then, brother or senior? My heart was pounding. I was simply clueless to these flowery tricks of Charles. Charles, I did what I promised you, shouldn't you keep your promise too? Charles's smile lightened a bit. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. Didn't you say last night that you wouldn't pester me again? The room was awfully quiet. Charles looked at me fixedly. James, are you sure this is what you want? I nodded, not daring to look Charles in the eye. 2 minutes later, he dryly dresses and gets out of bed. His tone is calm and his demeanor is back to the hangdog he was when we first met. It's just that the red mark on his neck is too obvious, adding a bit of flirtatiousness to his demeanor. He's like a playboy young master. All right, breakfast is on the table. I'll leave first. See you later. The door closed with a bang, and my heart trembled. 27. Charles has literally disappeared. Disappeared from my sight, to be precise. But he was still active on the campus confessions wall in the Fisher's Post, with people of both sexes falling for him. It was hard for me to block out the information about Charles. Freshman Charles seems to be in love. Really? With who? I think it's the president of his class. No, Charles is curvy. I saw him chatting with the senior from the foreign language school in front of the building yesterday, and the two of them were so close that they almost kissed each other. Really? How can he be curvy? Handsome guys are always digested in-house. His roommate told me many guys wrote love letters to Charles. Normally straight guys would be very uncomfortable with this kind of thing, but he's very used to it, and he even accepted them. King of the Sea. It's not obvious, it looks like we're talking about 8 at a time. The hallway is the fastest place for all kinds of gossip to circulate in the evening study hall. Recently, everyone has been talking about Charles's affair. It wasn't the first time I had heard such rumors. I told myself over and over again that these things had nothing to do with me. But I couldn't help being led by my sadness. Charles couldn't be deliberately playing games to paralyze himself because his heart was broken by my rejection, right? I walked soulfully toward the dormitory building, clutching my book, when I saw from a distance 2 distinct male figures close together under the streetlight. One of them was Charles. I turned around instantly and walked in the opposite direction. Tears fell uncontrollably from my nose. James, you big dummy. It was clearly you who pushed people away. What right do you have to hide here and be sad? In the silence of the night, the cell phone ringing in my pocket suddenly rang, and I was startled. Caller ID. Charles's mom. I hurriedly sniffled and adjusted my breathing. Hello, Auntie. James, I didn't disturb your studies, did I? Facing Charles's mom's voice, I was somehow weak. Have you met Charles at school? I have. Tell me the truth, is Charles in love? My voice weakened a bit. I'm not sure, he didn't tell me. The woman on the other side sighed with obvious disappointment. It's really not you, huh? It really wasn't me? What the hell? Charles's mom said helplessly, I thought he was enrolling in your college to chase you. Didn't you two have a good relationship before? How come it didn't work out? I used my clever brain to react for a round. I was stuck. Auntie, it's too abstract, I don't get it. Can you explain it to me in detail? 20. Charles was still standing at the bottom of the dormitory floor when the call ended. I took a deep breath and stepped towards him with vigor. Charles, come here. Charles gave me a lazy look with one hand in his pocket. Something wrong? The boy standing across from him was also eyeing me curiously. Although it's a bit rude to interrupt someone's lovemaking. But in the matter of interrupting love, there was no need to be too polite in the first place. Why don't you make it clear to me? Charles cocked his head. Say what? I glanced at the boy and went straight up to drag Charles away. Charles didn't struggle, letting me pull him behind the dormitory building. Your mom just called me and asked me if we were together. It turns out she already knew you were gay. Charles said in a matter-of-fact manner. I didn't say she didn't know. She caught me peeking at GV when I was 16. The aggression that had been building up over the past few days came pouring out, and tears crackled down her face. Then why didn't you tell me? Charles's lips pursed. After a long while, he sighed and raised his hand to wipe away my tears. I told you I wouldn't be kicked out of my house for something like this, but you didn't believe me. James, you don't even have the courage to face your own heart. You don't even dare to say a word about liking me. You don't believe in me nor yourself. Why do you want me to tell you everything? You still have the nerve to cry, I'm the one who got kicked out the next day after sleeping around, right? I sobbed and huffed. So how do I know if you don't tell me? I'm just timid, I'm worried about you, scared that you'll be homeless like me. Charles looked at me quietly. Perhaps I was crying so hard that he had to reach out and hold me, softly coaxing me. The softer he was, the more I cried. I was angry at myself for not being brave enough. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We both said in unison. Charles, let me start this time. I shouldn't have acted out of anger. If I could have calmed down and explained things to you, you wouldn't be as sad as you are now. But you're really good at breaking hearts. First you disappeared out of the country without saying a word, and the next day after you slept together, you can coldly tell me not to pester you. Although I have a thick skin, there's a limit to it. I purposely wiped snot and tears on him. It's my fault, I shouldn't have distrusted you, I thought too much, but I didn't tell you anything. Charles, I like you a lot. Charles laughed. He lowered his head as if to kiss me. I smacked him away. But you're with someone else, you're a womanizer, I admit I hurt you, but you're so willing to treat your feelings like child's play. Charles was dumbfounded. What the fuck am I doing? There's one standing under the streetlight. I've heard that you've been with this and that all day long, and you've got a bunch of rumored boyfriends. Charles was dumbfounded. He raised and lowered his hand, wanting to say something. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. To explain it to you, my relationship with him is kind of like your relationship with Robert, friends of the same kind. Zeros and zeros don't mix. 1 and 1 are hardly happy. My anger was half gone. He's from the Foreign Language Institute? Yeah, he's pretty well informed. Looks like he's the one rumored to be the one. So what's going on with you and your class president? Charles raised his hand and swore, that's even more impossible, it's a girl. I gave in. I kept my mouth shut and looked down, waiting for a step. Now, can we kiss? No. Charles was anxious. Why again? Salty. 29. Charles's mother, Ms. Olivia, is a wonderful person. I thought that she wanted Charles to work in his father's company. Even Charles thought so. But the truth is, she doesn't give a damn about that son of a bitch. The child is mine alone. He can pay for it if he wants to. Who wouldn't take money for nothing? He cheated on me, pretended to be single even though he had a wife, and for once in my life I've been blind. And he wants my son to work for him in his company. Who's going to inherit my company? Ms. Olivia made these remarks when Charles and I went to his home for Chinese New Year. Charles was silent. She herself is liberal enough to be open-minded about her children's orientation. She was, she said, a firm theorist of happiness. No forced marriages, no blind love, just what makes you happy. Mom, why didn't you say this earlier? I didn't know you were pretending on purpose. I thought you inherited that dog's stupidity and couldn't learn. That's why I was so anxious to find you a tutor. It's not like I've been disgusted with that guy for a day or two. What makes you think I want you to go to him? Charles sighed. We both looked at each other. Family harmony theme no. On the importance of timely communication. Charles's mom was indignant. I thought, if you are really stupid, I have to pick a smart boyfriend for you, otherwise my company will be ruined in your hands. I was also silent. So, Auntie, what were your criteria for interviewing tutors in the first place? Charles's mom quickly changed the topic and took out 2 thick red envelopes and stuffed them into Charles's and my arms. Come on, count your money and have fun. I stayed in Charles's room in a dignified manner. Do you think your mom heard you standing in the doorway that one time before? More than that, she hears it every time she's home. My heart palpitated. I felt a little shame at the back of my mind. Charles hooked his foot on my pant leg. I know what's going on in his head when he's near. I can't. Auntie's downstairs. Just don't scream so loud.